What am I doing?
This isn't a miter saw station like you see all over YouTube, and I'm very hesitant to call it a workbench because when you're talking woodworking, it's kind of a loaded word. So I've landed on tool bench. The general idea is that I want this bench to host a number of large electric tools, their accessories, a big amount of customizable storage, and still remain a usable work surface, which I think is something that a lot of miter stations lack. I'm cutting all of these pieces about 1 inch oversized, so that at the end I can pick out the perfect section in each. All these boards will eventually become the legs and various supports of the tool bench. I modeled my ideal setup in such a way that all the legs and supports will be milled square from the nominal dimensions to either 1 1/4 by 3 inches or 3 by 3 inches. A few of the resulting boards will later be cut down further for particular sections, but the overall dimensions will be easy to work with and are compatible with the 3D printed template I made for small mortise and tenons. I generated a lot more waste than I was expecting, and it took all day, so I wasn't even able to progress as far as I had hoped. But I did get a neat pile at the end. Now that all the boards are milled to size, I'm going to cut them in length. And here's my stop block setup. Can't think of any reason why I'd want to change that. There are a lot of pieces to this tool bench, but I tried to plan everything such that repeated operations would only require a little bit of setup. Here's another example of that. Each of the tenons for joining legs and stringers will be the same size. That way I can make all the cuts in only 2 setups. Sure hope I don't get overzealous and give tenons to any stringers that don't actually require them. The table leg assembly is going to be too large to properly clamp everything together, so to both add a mechanical join and some stability to the glue-up, I'm giving a pocket screw to each of the mortise and tenons. I used the drill press to take out most of the material in each mortise. After that, I used a router to take out material almost to the marked line. And the remainder is chisel work. Only one of the 4x4s I started with had a large and deep enough check that I couldn't avoid it during stock selection and milling. So I decided to put in a little walnut bow tie to both stabilize the split and add in a little bit of flair. The last set of operations before assembling the legs were to add a variety of dados and clearance for joining stringers or holding shelves. See, you can tell which piece I screwed up on multiple times. There were a few issues here and there that I had to take care of, but overall the assembly was pretty straightforward. This table and its partner of the same design that I've already repurposed were one of the first things that I built in this garage shop space. Truth be told, almost no planning and even less technical skill went into their construction. But they've managed to hold things off of the floor and house a few cobbled together shelves reliably. I'm ready to upgrade though. The new tool bench footprint should take up about the same area as the previous table and up to the current miter saw cart, with an additional couple of feet to the right as space for future dust collection. However, in that same footprint, it will also be the work area for the drill press, the air compressor, miter saw. In addition, it's going to have large storage shelves, a set of drawers, and a back wall with various storage options. The next stage of construction is the tabletop. I made a plan for this bench top to be constructed from several parts, and I'm following the cut list for that here. All working surfaces would be 2 sheets of plywood thick, and the bottom sheet will be cut into a template for the leg spacing underneath. This should help to eliminate any remaining racking or twisting in the legs. With all the pieces cut to size, I laid out the lines for the template and cut out the waste using a jigsaw. I'm getting to the bottom of an old bottle of glue. It's pretty gross looking. While that dries and before I forget, I'm going to attach these leveling feet. And now to gently persuade the tabletop into place. I wasn't sure how square everything was going to turn out, so I waited until this point to cut out the remaining templates, just in case something needed to be accounted for. This section will be the subsheet for the miter saw, as well as the attachment point for the drill press. This is a dust guard to protect the area where I plan to keep a power strip for all these tools. This last sheet doesn't get glued down. Not only do I still need to make a few more cuts, but in the end it needs to be removable so that I maintain access to the drill press. Now I'm placing the miter saw in its new home so I can start making plans and markings based on its real measurements. Also, after this point, there's no need to move it again. Okay, time to move the heavy drill press from before I was born. It's a bit too much to move all in one piece, so I just gotta push the motor and drill housing up and off the post. Up and off. Okay, up and off. Maybe if I was just a little bit more under it? Okay, there we go. The top two sheets are going to cover the base of the drill press, allowing for longer stock from the miter saw to slide by unimpeded. I'll roughly cut in the circle, but make it look nicer with a closely fitting 3D print. I got this right the first time and didn't have to reposition it like 4 more times after this. All that's left is to reassemble the drill press and we're ready to move on to storage. well, wheels and then storage. The top from the old table is being repurposed for shelving. And the parts of the old miter saw and drill press carts are becoming housing for drawers and the air compressor housey home. Sometimes I have to get creative with hammering parts that fit a little too tightly. And here's the compressor, but the reel will only be here temporarily. There's really only one thing to be said for the next part. Drawers. Imagine there's like a scowl on my face. You can hear my air compressor check valve failing in real time. While working on the rest of the build, I noticed a problem developing. This is the same leg that I put a bow tie in toward the beginning of the project, but here on the adjacent face, a small split formed whenever I was attaching the caster. I didn't think much of it at the time, but clearly it has gotten worse and extends the entire span of the leg. I'll leave these clamps here to help stabilize it overnight, or at least until I can get some bow ties in place. Once I routed out the majority of the material, I saw that the split wasn't very deep yet, but was headed toward the pith, so it's good news that I'm taking care of it now. I'm also putting another bow tie on the original split, just because I don't want any more surprises. With the base assembled in its entirety, and barring any other emergency interventions, I'm moving on to the back cabinet. The plan with this section is to offer housing for infrequently used tools that I don't currently have a good place for, as well as frequently used tools that I want fast access to. It would also be nice to have shelving for projects in progress, and maybe some display space. As was the case with all other storage solutions, modularity is the name of the game, so for each of the uprights I'm using a number of dados. Most are for small shelves, a few are for support, and one long one for a sliding storage solution that will become a bit more clear later. I don't intend for the back cabinet to be a permanent fixture, as I might want to go a different route in the future. so I'm attaching it to the base using several pocket screws per upright. To assemble, I cut a few slide-in shelves to size and clamped the uprights together for proper spacing. Then I glued and screwed the spanning shelves into place. To make the structure more rigid and square, I'm reusing the old pegboard wall as bracing, with the added benefit of modular pegboard storage in the back. Probably should have cleared more things out of the way. With the cabinet in place, I'm fastening it down so I can take a few measurements and make sure the spacing is correct for the sliding cleat wall. The inner uprights were a bit less cooperative, and I had to clamp it down to make sure everything met up properly. Once the markings are in place, I'm ready to make a setup for the router to do its thing. Like a glove. Which brings us to the final planned feature of the build. A few sections of inlaid T-track. The longest run is in line with the miter saw fence and is mainly intended for use with stop blocks. Other sections for potential hold-down setups or really anything that comes to mind. I'm not certain what all it'll end up being useful for, but I've got some ideas already rolling around, like a plate to securely hold my large vise but not permanently attach it to the bench and in the way of longer stock. I've still got a number of tool holders that I'll need to plan, and a lot of organizing until I'm happy with the layout. I've never really been super happy with drawers in the shop before, so for these I'm going to be utilizing the Gridfinity collection of open source organizers. Hopefully being acutely organized will make me like them more. I've started at it already, but it's a slow process. Look at all of that storage for large tools. And that pristine surface? Oh, I can't wait to spill coffee on that immediately. And up there, now incomplete projects can stare at me directly in the face every day. Knowingly. Judging. One last touch.